Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BPW Ontario's third of the 2023-2024 speaker series. Tonight we have Charmaine Grace, How to Manage Your Personal and Professional Boundaries. We'll start off with the land acknowledgement. Jocelyn, do you want to read that?
Yes. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, BPW Ontario members acknowledge that we gather on traditional lands of Ihadanansoni, the Ojibwe Chippewa, Anishinabek, Anishinabeg, Atawandaron, Wendat, Huron-Wendat, Mississaugas of the New Credit, Atikameksheng, Anishinabeg, Métis, and Inuit peoples. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with Indigenous peoples who continue to live in these lands to create a safer and more abundant future for all women and girls.
Thank you. Our idea statement. Anne Nickley, do you want to read the idea statement?
Anne had difficulty with her computer this afternoon. I'm not sure that she can actually hear.
Oh, okay.
Anne, are you able to hear and read this?
I will do it, yeah.
I can hear you, but I can't see anybody.
Okay.
Do you want me to read that?
Yes, please.
Sure.
BPW Ontario welcomes all people who identify as women, regardless of race, religion, age, nationality, citizenship, geographic location, ability, marital status, socioeconomic status, education, sexual orientation, or gender identity, and is committed to provide an inclusive, welcoming, and empowering environment for all members.
Thank you. And our club caller, who would like to read that? Kyla, are you able to read it?
Yeah, I can do that.
Excellent.
May we see beyond pettiness, fault-finding, and all forms of prejudice. Let us meet each other face to face with honesty, patience, and generosity of spirit. May we go forward unafraid, confidently putting into action plans that are carefully considered and adequately debated. May we depart with the knowledge that through BPW and our collective energies, we can impact upon the greater good, more that can be realized alone. And may we have the strength to abide by our convictions, the reward of sharing our burdens, and the joy of success in all we do.
I have to fix that error. I forgot that was there. Kyla is our new BPW Ontario secretary. So I'm very excited to introduce her to everybody. Actually, Kyla, you want to turn on your camera and show them your beautiful face?
Sure. There we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello. And Kyla's grandmother was a member. And I'm sorry, what was your grandmother's name?
Barbara Wetmore.
Yeah, so very excited to have Kyla on board.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I will be turning over all the secretarial duties to her soon. And there's a big cheer. You can't see me, but I got a big grin. So I'll turn the meeting over to Nancy Broers to do the introduction of our guest speaker.
Thank you. Okay. Charmaine Grace has been a member of BPW Niagara Falls for the past 7 years. She's the immediate past president and current membership chair. She's the owner operator for Your Next Step to Possibility, where she coaches women from 47 up to step into their possibilities. She's a certified life coach and passion test facilitator, a master of ceremonies, and a presentation skills coach. Her mission is to reignite people's spark of hope so they get clear on what they want, believe they can have it, and take steps to making it a reality. Clients tell her they come back to themselves with her coaching. Charmaine was a Toastmaster for 22 years, where she enhanced her speaking and grew her leadership skills. She achieved the highest Toastmaster Award of Distinguished Toastmasters, DTM. She is also a former volunteer with the Canadian Cancer Society for over 20 years, where she did risk reduction presentations and sat on the unit council and did volunteer training as well as a 6-week program called Living Well Beyond Cancer. Charmaine was the motivator and chair of 2 of BPW Niagara Falls murder mysteries and 2 very successful Halloween parties. So please welcome Charmaine Grace.
Hello, everybody. Welcome tonight. We're going to talk about creating boundaries. Let me get can I share my screen? Yes. Oh, go back. Share oh, it's already up. Okay, I got it, but it's not sharing. Sorry. There we go. We're going to talk briefly about creating boundaries. I first heard about this last spring. I was taking some coaching programs, and one woman got up and talked about creating boundaries, and I was just in awe of what she said. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But first of all, I've lost my page and my notes. So are any of you as confident and self-assured as you'd like to be at this point in your life? Yes, no?
No.
I can't see you.
No.
So is there perhaps someone who keeps coming into your physical or emotional space in a way that is inappropriate? Or maybe you're realizing that you have waited far too long to have a boundary conversation, and then you explode. Anybody here ever done that besides me? And that's not who you are, right? You're not the explosive type, but what it means is that you've reached your emotional tipping point and that it may be time for you to start setting boundaries. Actually, all 3 of those things are signs that you need to start setting boundaries. So what are boundaries? Okay, what is boundary? What are boundaries? Boundaries are the limit or space between you and another. It's a clear place where you begin and the other person ends. And sometimes we forget that. Boundaries are invisible lines defining the acceptable boundaries for individuals, and they can be physical, don't touch me, or emotional, don't lie to me. They could be based on time or space, material, intellectual, or sexual. So that's about 6 different areas where we may want to set boundaries. They're also defined as, this is a couple of definitions I got from Parent Emeritus, which means retired parents, but it's about conduct disorders for unruly children. And I think it's something we need to bring into our life in business and in life, not just for children, because sometimes we need to define where our responsibility ends and another's begins. And when we do that, we may have to prevent ourselves from rescuing someone else from the consequences of their destructive behavior so that they can learn and grow. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I know that when my children were small, it was really important for them to learn that there was consequence for their behaviors. So boundaries are boundaries are all about you. It's about recognizing and supporting how you feel, what you need, and what you tolerate. And if you think about your yard and you have a fence, what boundaries really are the gatekeeper of who you let into your yard, how far you let them into your yard, and what you will tolerate when they're in your yard. But really, it's important to know that it's the limits or the invisible lines that you recognize about supporting how you feel yourself, what you need, and what you will tolerate. And these include our preferences, what we prefer in our life, what we want, our desires, what we like and don't like, what our limits are, and what our deal breakers are. So I usually like to ask questions. Anybody in the group willing to talk about any places where they need boundaries? And where your boundaries are being pressed about on how you feel or what you need or what you will tolerate? Okay, one of the places that, well, here, needing information. Have you ever talked to somebody and they really start getting cross and angry at you because you haven't met their needs? But in the meantime, you don't know what their needs are. They haven't told you what their needs are. And because you haven't, they've freaked. So that's a good place to set a boundary for, hey, I'd love to help you, but I don't know what you need if you don't tell me. Like, I need to know what it is. So that's just a brief example right now, but we'll keep going here. Healthy boundaries are really important. And I liked this that I got off of this Catalyst for Self-Care. And there's, I forget the other place that it's from. But when we have healthy boundaries, we have improved emotional health, improved because we're not sitting, fretting, or angering about what happened. We have improved relationships because we're able to talk to each other and be clear about what it is we need and what we don't want. We set clear expectations for others. We decrease our stress. We improve our self-care and our capabilities. We gain respect from others and self-respect, and I'm getting into that in a minute. It promotes our autonomy, and most importantly, it wards off burnout. I know that I've been in burnout before, and I highly don't recommend it. Okay, but each one of us needs to know and express our boundaries. Healthy boundaries are a form of self-care. It helps create clear guidelines, like I said, and all these things here, the guidelines, the rules, the limits for how you will be treated. They let others know what is and what is not okay. Boundaries allow us to honor our needs and wants so that we feel safe and respected. And when we don't do that, like, I don't know, if you're one of those people that says yes all the time, you may be headed for burnout. I know I was there. There's a challenge with setting boundaries, though. Here's the biggest challenge. And that big challenge is, let this work, is that many of us were raised to be codependent, compliant, and not honest about what we feel, need, or tolerate. We learned this so that we don't make other people uncomfortable. Anybody here? Yes? No? Yeah. Let's see if I can get a bigger picture up here, my people. So I can see who's there. Okay. And the challenge of that is that we're not taught to express. So we don't tell people how we feel. People don't know. I just mentioned that already. If we don't tell people what we want, they don't know. And if we don't tell people what we will tolerate, then they will just continue to abuse us in a lot of cases. The problem is that when we say yes, when we really want to say no, or when we deny how we feel, or we don't speak up about what we want to tolerate, we are actually being dishonest with people. We are giving them corrupt data. We are telling them that it's okay to ignore how I feel. It's okay to disregard what I want. And I'll tolerate anything. So carry on. So besides not giving them truth about who we are, we're teaching others how to treat us. So the main reason I think we need to learn boundaries is to teach others how to treat us. We're not letting them know what our preferences are, our desires, our limits, or our deal breakers. And if there's someone who doesn't know you a lot, they just know that you're a great helper, say at BPW, and Charmaine will say yes every time, and you ask and they ask you, and you're thinking, oh, I've got so much on my plate right now. I've got to do this, that, and the other thing. And now they want me to do this. If we don't know how to say no and we say yes, that's where we're headed for burnout, right? And then there's anger in the group. It's causing disruption among the people. It's the same thing at work. When we say all the time, yeah, oh, I'll stay overtime. Yeah, I'll work that extra half an hour. Yes, I'll work through my lunch. Eventually you get tired and you get frustrated and you have to say, I can't work today. And when that happens, they turn on you and say, but you always do. Well, and then it becomes an argument, and then it becomes a negotiation on their side, or a guilt trip, or a whole bunch of other things, if people don't know what you're willing to do or accept. So it's really important to let people know up front. When I look at this and I'm talking about it, it reminds me of what I heard from a speaker a long time ago who was talking about the different types of people in a plant. And I've seen this. You got your people that do just what they need to do and they get by and they maybe make their numbers. You got your people who work a little bit harder. You got your people that go crazy and work and do all the overtime and say yes to everything and do it all. And then when the person who says yes all the time gets tired and says, or gets burnt out or has to say no once in a while, the management turns on them, not on the people that are not pulling the weight, but on the person that's been doing all the extra work. So we've got to be very careful about that. Charlotte, you had a question?
Yeah, I think there's another lens to this. It's not that we're programmed to, be yes people, but that the consequence is always very negative. And I think that's a different perspective than so it's really about like, how do we address authority, say, for example, in a way that they can accept it. So, hey, my past, yeah, I'd be interested in their perspective on that.
I've got that answer to a question a little bit further on. Okay, so thank you for the question. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Because we do have to worry about saying no to our bosses, to our spouses, to our siblings or our parents. That's a whole thing. But we're just right now identifying the problem of not letting them know what it is. If we don't let them know our preferences, desires, and our limits. What happens when we don't do that and people don't know who we are because we don't know who we are? The result is that we feel empty because no one knows who we really are. We're feeling alone and unseen. There could be anger and resentment, maybe even depression because, I give. And when I ask somebody else if they'll do something for me, they say no. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Any other things in there for how people feel when they feel like they haven't set their boundaries?
So much frustration.
Frustration. Oh, yes.
Or
Yes.
like marginalizing, like feeling marginalized.
We may feel marginalized. Yes. What does frustration do for us, though?
Not much.
What does it do for our families?
Charmaine?
Yes.
I don't know whether this story is what you're asking for or not, and stop me if it has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
But quite a few years ago, obviously, I used to work, well, I was a teacher, and I worked in Fort Erie, which I loved, but I lived in St. Catharines. So getting there early in the morning was not easy because I also had 3 children to keep an eye on
Yes.
and whatever to make sure they got to school. Now, I had a he's seemingly very nice principal, but one day I went in and I never arrived like an hour ahead of time in the morning, but I always was there at 5:30 at night.
Yes.
Because because I felt, well, okay, I can do my extra here as
Yes.
well in the morning. Well, one day he mentioned to me about being there earlier, and I said, well, I really can't. And I explained the circumstances. And then I said, it's interesting because one of the other teachers who had arrived after me in the morning wasn't getting reprimanded.
Yes.
And I didn't think that was quite right, but I think that sort of relates to what you're trying to say.
Yes.
And I eventually I just said, well, I can't get here earlier in the morning. I am here till 5:30 every day without fail. And I mean, you know where Fort Erie is as compared to
Yes.
Catharines. So that meant it was 6 or later when I got home every day. But that was okay because somebody was at home with the children and I was able to get home with us dinner I'd already prepared the night before and that type of thing. So I guess it must have bothered me quite a bit because after all these years, I still remember it.
Well, yeah,
Was it a guy? Was the guy
It-
who was late?
It was,
Yeah, I
but
wonder.
I wouldn't consider him that. That wouldn't have been the first thing I would have told you about this man. He was a pretty fair guy in general. So, it was just a circumstance.
I definitely understand that. And this is one of the times when I did set boundaries because the one job I applied for, they wanted me to start at 8 o'clock. Said, can't get there, then I have to get my kids to school. I can get there for 8:30. And that was not a problem. But if there was any comment about not coming in for 8 o'clock, the fact that I was always there 10, 15, 20 minutes after, then I would have been upset. And that builds the resentment because they're
Yeah,
calling you on what you didn't do, but not on what you have done.
yeah, exactly.
So if you can tell people up front, it's far more powerful to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
how do you know that you need boundaries? Oh my gosh, this is a different PowerPoint presentation. So it's like, okay. You know that you need boundaries when you notice what you're tolerating.
Yeah.
Are you tolerating disrespect from coworkers or the men in the group? Or are there bullies? Are there bullies around? Like, this happens in families. It took me many, many years to realize, and I'm still kind of in shock that my dad was a bully. and I was one of the people that was bullied. Disrespect. What else is there? Bad manners. Are you tolerating bad manners from people you work with or people in your group or whatever? Or how about cruelty? Some people take a lot of pleasure in being cruel. And then when you call them on, they say, oh, I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or are you feeling unseen? Because perhaps your boss is not seeing what you're doing or recognizing it, or your partner is not recognizing it, or are you just plain being overwhelmed and you have to say no? Any of those are situations where you need to set boundaries. Any other ideas? Any other suggestions where people need boundaries?
Babysitting the neighbor's kids.
Oh, that can be. Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Or the sister's kids.
You're at home and they say, well, you're at home a lot. I need to go shopping. Could you keep the kids? No.
I was just thinking as you were talking, Charmaine, about like early 2000s. I was working at a consulting company for engineering, and my sitting down at the first meeting, and they're like, Charlotte, can you grab the coffee? And I'm like, well, I think I come prepared for meetings. And like how that kind of evolves, but that's early 2000s. I think the behaviors are the same to like actively marginalize women.
Oh,
in-
well,
in
I know
meetings.
that was, but back in the 90s, no, in the
Yeah.
80s, actually, I became, I was a clerk typist when I started and became a dispatcher. And when the engineer would ask me for coffee, I'd say it's in the kitchen.
Yeah,
I knew what the boundaries were. I don't do coffee.
yeah, like it didn't work. Like I couldn't fit into that organizational culture, right?
No,
So it
no.
so it really affects our ability to like build those skill sets.
Right.
Right.
So
So
we have
you
to,
really have to tolerate a lot, I think. So when you talk about like disrespect, bullies, like you can't really do much when it's in the authority.
right.
So
So if you can't create the boundaries that you need by talking to the boss, what you
yeah,
really want to do is
yeah,
consider finding a new boss.
yeah. No, thanks.
Okay.
So
Because
thanks.
that's part of your boundary system.
Yeah,
Change what you don't
I'm
like.
like,
Nancy.
I don't know, you gotta hear about grab the coffee, and I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, Nancy.
I just it made me think when I first started my very first full-time job at Sears in the advertising department, I was only 18 and I had come right out of grade 13, and everybody else in the office were established older people. And two of them were men, and the one woman was a buddy of these two men, and they treated me like a child. I was extremely shy, extremely shy. And we went out for dinner one time. It was a lobster dinner. I'd never had lobster in my life. And they made a prank, and they had the waitress put the bib on me and then walk away and not put it on anybody else. You know, the bib they used to put on.
Yep.
I was so humiliated.
Yep.
And then, because I didn't know.
Exactly. And Nancy,
So then another time, the one man actually stood in front of my desk and lowered his zipper and sang, "I'm in the nude for love." And I mean, I was just so humiliated,
right.
embarrassed, and I didn't know what to do because I was so new.
The question to ask now, Nancy, because this is way in the future, is what would you do now in that situation?
Now I'd say, go ahead and drop your door so we can all have a good laugh.
Well, exactly. See, what things have changed as we've learned.
Okay, could I ask a question?
Yes.
And I'm not interrupting. This is important. We are older.
Yes.
I would like to hear from somebody a little younger and tell me if these kinds of things ever happen now. I have a sneaking suspicion some of them do, but I don't think all of that would.
Yes, of course it does.
No, I
Oh my gosh. We're trying to be so gentle with the next last generation to be like, oh yeah, it's all changed, but no.
Carla, did you have something to share with us?
Yeah, I was just gonna,
yeah, that's who I want to hear from.
Yeah,
Somebody
Carla.
a little younger.
I was gonna say, I think my perspective is a little bit skewed because I work in a male-dominated industry, so it's still very much present. I would say it's like I've been in the same company for the past 8 years, and I would say over that time, it's gotten a little bit better, but it's still very much present. Like there's customers that refuse to deal with me specifically because I'm a woman, and it's still very present in today's day. So
Okay.
Wow.
So would you be asked to
Hey,
go make the
Kyla,
coffee?
like I'm an engineer. What's your background? Kyla?
I'm a project manager for inventory solutions.
Oh, nice. Like SAP or like you work?
Like Lean Sigma, that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
I'm totally
Okay.
Lean Six Sigma. Nice.
Yeah.
Anne,
Can
you
I
had a
ask-
comment?
Could I ask Kyla another question?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy. Or Anne.
Kyla, Would
Yeah.
these guys expect you to bring them coffee?
To bring him coffee?
Yeah, like that to me is the most demeaning of all of these things.
So not coffee necessarily, but what I've noticed is in meetings, even meetings that I'm leading, they will expect me to be the note taker for all
Oh,
of it. So I'll be the one presenting and talking, and they'll still expect me to gather all of the information and take notes and everything. So that role has just always fallen on me.
oh,
And I noticed that it happens to other women as well within my company too.
Okay.
there's
Okay,
a
so
boundary.
now you have to change that, my dear.
Yes,
Yes.
there's a boundary to be set. And that would be what I would do in that case is say, you're taking notes today. And
Yeah, and Fred, at the end of the meeting, would you gather up all the pertinent information?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And like I've done that. I was a dispatcher for a garbage and construction company, so I know what you're talking about. I didn't take any of the crap.
Oh yeah.
That was in the
I
80s.
know, and it won't be easy for you the first time.
No, it won't be.
No.
Just calmly stand up there and say, Fred, I need you to collect everything at the end because we'll need that to go through it or something. And then turn around, don't discuss it.
Yeah.
This is a really good advice from an older person. And I don't often admit to being older.
And what a great example of a boundary in the workplace.
Yes,
Yeah.
So Kyla, we'll have to check in with you and find out how you make out.
absolutely.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
it's quite wonderful because once they know where you stand, it's incredible what happens with the men you work with. It
They
really,
even start volunteering.
yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I have stories I could tell, but we don't have time for that. So let's carry on then. Okay. So what I wanted you to know is that tolerating inappropriate behavior, whether it's at home or at school or at work, takes a toll. So I suggest that when you're thinking about how you're feeling, that you take a resentment inventory. A resentment inventory. Yeah, wow. How come I can't talk all of a sudden? Ask yourself, are you feeling alone, unseen, not listened to, or unheard? Because that's a really good sign that there's time for a discussion, at least. Are you angry at people all the time? Angrily defensive when people talk to you, or angry at feeling disrespected? That's a big one you would notice. Are you angry at yourself for not speaking up, for tolerating? Anybody here been there? Yeah. How about, are you feeling overwhelmed or depressed or just plain ready to give up? Yeah. If you're feeling all of that stuff, you have to ask yourself, what needs of mine are not being met? Well, they're all listed right there, but there may be something else, right? There may be just simple recognition, feeling loved. I mean, any different emotions that we could feel. It's important for you to learn. And again, because I mentioned earlier, a lot of women were not taught to speak up for themselves and talk about who, right? So they don't really know how. But now in 2024, if we're not speaking up, we're not doing any favors for ourselves or the people in our lives. Because remember, it does affect how others treat us and see us. Boundaries.
Sorry. Not only that, but we're not setting a good example to the younger generations.
Thank you, Nancy, for that. I completely forgot about that, but we are not, especially to our daughters and our granddaughters and the younger women, because what we're doing is just asking for a little bit of respect.
Yeah.
So I came across this the last time when I talked about this in September, that boundaries are being aware of what is unacceptable and normalizing saying no. So that's what Kyla's going to do. She's, in a way, going to say no to being treated as the quote woman in the group, but she wants to be treated as a member of the team. Boundaries are doing what is best for you, and know that it's not your responsibility to sacrifice yourself for others. I threw that in there, and I'm not sure if it's right in the order I want, but I needed that to come out because that's powerful, and it needed to be in this here thing. So how do you start setting
Explain that.
boundaries? Pardon?
Can you explain that a bit? You said it was really important too, and I was like, I don't understand the sacrifice yourself.
Wait a second, Charlotte. Let me go backwards.
I'm so sorry. to
Okay.
interrupt. I'm so sorry.
I'm
But I
not
was
sure
like-
about where this goes, but I just thought it was really, really important that for people, women and men, but women especially who are not familiar with setting boundaries or are not in the habit of it. It's
Like
important
my
to be
boundaries are
aware.
as important as yours, like, or my needs aren't important as yours.
Yeah,
That perspective. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Oh. Yeah, being aware of what's unacceptable. So this is in the slides, and you'll be able to get the slides after. So, okay, where am I? Next place. Okay, so what's important to you as a person? What do you value? What are your beliefs, feelings, emotions, and ideas? I'm sure that every one of us here has put our beliefs, our feelings, and our emotions on hold to please someone else, even if we didn't want to. Yes? Yes. It's in setting boundaries for what you believe, feelings, emotions, and ideas, and knowing what your value is helps you to understand others. Because you'll understand from this point of view that you're different from them and that their opinions may be different, but it still means that you have the right to set boundaries for yourself. And it will help you in choosing others into your circle of friends. People who reflect the kind of life that you want, not somebody because the friend said, come on in, but you don't want to be treated that way by a lot of other people. So it's cool. Yes, that definition, that's for everybody. I'm just, okay.
May I have a question,
Yes,
or not so much a question, a statement, I guess. I've had it where those who know me know that I can get very passionate about things. I jump in with both feet.
Mhm.
And sometimes I feel that I feel let down because maybe others don't pick up on the what I consider the excitement or the fuel of what we're doing. But I have to also remember that not everybody has that same passion about what I'm talking about. So I have to think when I have a negative reaction,
yes,
disappointed, I have to think, well, I got to understand where they're coming from.
exactly. You got to understand where they're coming from, but not at the expense of your needs.
No, what I tend to do then is think, all right, then I'll do that myself too. So I add to my list.
But sometimes when you do that, Nancy, if you sit down and think, how come they're not as excited as me? Perhaps I need to go a little deeper into this. Maybe they know something I don't.
Mhm, mhm.
Right? So,
Or they just don't have the energy or the time, or they,
yes. And sometimes they don't. They don't. Like our group in BPW Niagara Falls is a small group. So we have to be careful how much stuff we do because we can just get tired out, right?
exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like I had this music tribute halfway there with entertainers and stuff, and I thought, I can't do this.
Yes.
I've got the bingo, I've got the round table, I've got the speaker series, and I'm writing for somebody else. And no, as much as I want to do it, I can't.
That's exactly, Nancy. That's where, thank you. I never brought this up into my notes, but that sometimes we have to set boundaries on what we try to do, because we can overdo ourselves. Oh, yes, Jocelyn?
That's exactly correct what you're saying. What happens is those boundaries are set by circumstances beyond our control.
Mhm.
And we then are forced to step back and let other people take on the duties that we had chosen to do.
Yep.
And so that's a situation I've been in for the past month
Yes.
because of health
Oh.
issues.
Yeah, that's setting a boundary for your personal health, right?
It's very difficult though, because
Yes.
I like the things that I'm committed to. I like to feel that I'm doing them properly and doing them the way that I'm supposed to be doing them. And so a lot of the time, no one else can do these things in the exact same way. So I
Yes.
feel cheated because yes, the work is being done, but maybe at about a quarter of what I would like it to be done.
Yes.
And it's very difficult. But this again is it's a boundary of respecting myself, and I'm not doing this properly. So I'm in
love
a
that
learning mode.
terminology. I love that terminology, setting a boundary of self-respect.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you for that, Jocelyn. That's awesome. Okay. So I said to you, what do you value? What are your feelings and all that? It's important to you to know that your values are different from someone else. Nancy just brought that up. Thank you. Become familiar and comfortable with your own beliefs and feelings and emotions and ideas. A lot of people, and I've been in this group, and sometimes I find myself in it again, is I may not believe in what they're doing. And you know what? It's okay for me to believe what I believe, right? It's okay. There's another belief that's coming with that, but we have to give ourselves permission. This is what I believe. I don't have to believe exactly the same as everybody else. So my feelings, my emotions, and ideas may be different from other people. It's really important. The better you, I already said all this, really. The better
Yes,
you
but
are, the better you are.
you're actually lucky because you know what your beliefs are.
Yes.
And
But
a lot of the
some of us-
time, I don't know what my beliefs are.
Well, that's just it, Jocelyn. A lot of people, especially women, don't know their beliefs because they haven't been allowed to hold them, right? But it's really important to start finding ways to discover what are your beliefs and give yourself permission to hold them. And I didn't put this in the slide, I probably should have, but it's your job to prioritize what you feel, what you need, and what you'll tolerate, not anyone else. And that's one thing that in some of my research I found that is a lot of people don't set boundaries because they're letting other people control their lives. They think it's easier to let someone else just make all the decisions and do all the controlling. But then let's back up to the resentment factor and the anger factor when you start getting abused because of someone else making all your choices. It's really important that we know our own preferences, desires, limits, and deal breakers. That's what I was getting at. We're the only one that can know those things. It was hard for me to say no when I wanted to a lot. Oh gosh, a lot. Because somebody's not going to like me. Someone's going to be mad at me. They won't call me again, or any other number of things. But remember that it's our conditioning that says that we can't say no. But to change our conditioning, we have to start by giving ourselves permission to do so. And it's okay to say no now and again, even to our honeys. So here's an example of an exercise I'd like you to try for yourself. Before I get there, I'm looking at two sets of things. So what you want to do, my friends, is you want to stop the automatic yes. Nancy, will you make a dozen cookies for tomorrow's meeting? No.
I don't think so.
You can say it in a nicer way. but you know, um,
Sorry, I'm out of ingredients.
Uh, I,
Well,
My
I have
husband
a,
ate them all already.
and
what,
Jocelyn,
what happened with me is, yes, I got to the point where I could say no, but I realized that my entire body language was actually saying yes.
yes,
So even though my words were, no, I really can't do this, I had to actually see myself in the mirror. And I did that several times before I understood that when I was saying, no, I can't do this, I was actually saying yes.
wow, that's brilliant, because I imagine that it happens for a lot of people. And what happens is, next thing you know, there's an argument. I learned several years ago that no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And whenever you give an excuse for why you can't go, some people think you're opening up a dialogue, a discussion, and they're going to talk you into it. So it's really important to know that. So here's an exercise for you to do. And that is to give yourself a week, 7 days, where you are not going to respond instantly. And that may be hard for some of you. I know it is. But respond with, I'll have to get back to you on that. And so you're not throwing in an excuse, or I need 24 hours. I learned about 2 years ago to institute a policy for my business. And the policy is I give myself 24 to 48 hours to respond. Especially if it's a business thing, and I know that it's a big expense or it's a big time thing. I always think about that. Just remember, we have to teach people that we have the right to think as well as set boundaries. So instead of saying yes all the time, just set aside 7 days, mark it on your calendar, and mark every time someone asks you, instead of saying yes, you can put them off, or you can just say no. Just practice saying no. In fact, here's one of the ways about to say no. And this I learned from the passion test. I'm a passion test facilitator, and it's a way of finding out what's most important in your life. But the thing that we learned is I love you and I love me. In a lot of cases, we say yes because I love you and I forget about me. But when you love you and you love me, when you love someone else, and you can say, Charlotte, I really appreciate the wisdom that you've brought into these meetings and the questions you bring. And I can't take that question right now. Or you notice what I did, and I'm just grabbing at straws here right now. But when someone asks you to do something, you point out something you like about them, or even about the question. What a really great question. And I'll get back to you on that tomorrow or the next day. Notice I'm not saying but. Because when someone says to you, will you do this? And you say, oh, Nancy, I really love that you've asked me to MC that event, but or blah, 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 blah. You don't even hear what goes behind it. You heard the but, that I've negated it. So I really appreciate that you've asked me to MC that event. And if it was on a different date, I'd do it for sure, because you know how much I love, right? But you say, and it keeps the people listening. They're not being butted out. It's butted out, right?
That's awesome.
It is. Use and instead of but. It's a really powerful thing. You have to take a note on that, because I didn't write it I didn't put it in my slides. So what I want you to know and to do is to allow yourself to feel that it's possible to set boundaries. A lot of us haven't felt that in the past. We haven't been allowed to do it, so we haven't felt that it was possible. But it is possible. When you learn that you have the right to say no, like others do, because when someone says no to you, it's a different story than you saying no to them, right? And when you say no, like others do, and that you can set boundaries, it becomes your new normal. Remember on the thing of boundaries, normalizing no?
Mhm.
Remember that setting boundaries is to protect you, and it allows others to get to know you. And you get to know yourself. That was the problem. Remember, when you say yes, when you really mean to say no, you are not being emotionally trustworthy. Notice how many people these days say yes, and then they don't show.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that? Yes, I'll help. And they just don't show, they don't call, they don't, nothing. There's just nothing. How many times does a person have to do that to you before you stop trusting them? Right? But we got to be careful we don't put ourselves in that position where we say yes all the time, something else comes up and we don't do it. When you say no and stick to your terms and conditions, you are more trustworthy. And people learn that about you. They learn they can trust you. Setting your own boundaries is taking responsibility for yourself. And it's telling others how you want and expect to be treated. This is setting limits on who can come into your space and what you expect of them once they're there, how you want to be spoken to, touched, treated psychologically or emotionally. And whatever you say goes. When you get to that point, whatever you say goes, no matter what others may think, feel, or believe.
I'm just wondering, Charmaine, did you
Yeah.
want to advance the page? We're still on stop the
I
automatic.
know I'm still on the yes, I think.
Yes. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Okay, let's go back. You're taking responsibility yourself, knowing that whatever you say goes, no matter what others think, feel, or believe, because you are not responsible for their feelings, anxious beliefs, or emotions. And that's really hard initially. I'll tell you, I had a little to do with my sister on the weekend. And it's really hard for me not to feel responsible for her feelings and how and her anger. And, but I know that without the details, I can't make the choices. So.
Like, are you the elder sister? Or
Yes, I am the elder sister.
like, you're not responsible, Charmaine.
I got used and abused for
You're the like
few
they're
years.
adults. You're all adults now.
That's right.
You're
That's right.
awesome.
She is adult. But the habit that we've learned, this is where the problem comes in, ladies, is changing our habits.
Mhm.
Like, I just have been punishing myself mercilessly all weekend and then remembering I'm not responsible for how she feels. I'm responsible for how I feel. What am I going to do about how I feel? Right? That's where it's really important. Right, I'm not responsible for how they react to the boundaries I've set. I'm only responsible for how I react to their boundaries. And so I can respond or react. So I learned so much more about creating boundaries. Here's a digest version on how to set boundaries for you guys to take away. Recognize that you deserve to be treated with respect. That took me decades. Take time to define and acknowledge the boundaries you have already set in your relationships or that you haven't set. Notice that. What boundaries would you like to set for yourself from here on in? And I want you to communicate your boundaries respectfully and respect other people's boundaries. And again, this is where the and comes in instead of but. Like, I love you very much. And I don't like to be spoken to in that tone of voice. I love that you like to eat spaghetti every second day. And I will not be cooking it. You know, I'm clutching at straws again. Okay. So any question? Oh, yes. Remember, I love you and I love me. Okay. So any questions before I close this up?
Charmaine, I'm just wondering, is there copyright on all of this at all? Do you have a copyright on this?
In the back of this, I don't, but there are quotes and stories in here. And in the back of the slides, there is the resources for where I got the information.
The reason I'm asking is, you know, my mandala coloring books.
Yes,
I was thinking setting boundaries would be an awesome
absolutely.
for a mandala book. And I thought, you know, if I could use some of these points, you know, if it's yours with permission or whatever, I just think that that's something that people can use. Not
Absolutely.
only that, I've been asked to do them for children now. So,
Well, let's talk about it, Nance, okay?
okay. Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Now, Charmaine, you did say early on in the meeting that you would share this presentation with us. So if it's possible for you to send it to Anne Harvey, and she can send it on to all of us who attended the meeting,
Okay. Okay.
that would be great.
Thank you. To Anne Harvey. Okay. Let me write that down.
Have you got my email?
Yeah, there she is.
I do believe, Charmaine, you do have her email. If you don't, I will give it to you.
Okay. Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Anne.
No problem. I'll send it out to everyone.
Okay, here's a question. This is not in the slides. But I'm going to leave this how to set boundaries up here. I got some questions. I found some questions when I was doing my research before, and I'll share them with you if nobody has a question. One is, how do I say no when there's a power differential? Charlotte, that's your question from the beginning, right? What the answers
I was gonna say, oh, that's awesome. That's just kind of exactly down my alley with my question. So go for it.
Exactly. So ask yourself, do I have the right to say no in this situation? What am I saying no to? And then if you need to respond with, I really appreciate your asking, and I don't have the bandwidth to take that on right now. No, don't butt them, okay? No buts.
But comes so easily.
Right.
Yeah, Charmaine, it's just not like I kind of joked, like as a professional engineer with 20 years of experience, I kind of joked about corporate surveys where it says, like, okay, are you male or female? And I'd be like the only female in North America. So, like, when we talk to like sexual harassment policies or anything like that, it would not be supported by
Oh,
the management level.
you know what, Charlotte, I understand that. And
But that's
my
professional.
estimator.
I
Okay.
think the union has a lot more power, Charmaine.
You think what has?
I think the union has a lot more power.
Right. And we're not going into union right now.
Okay.
But let me just tell you one of the things I did about sexual harassment when I was
Okay.
dispatching garbage and heavy construction. My estimator had a calendar of a scantily dressed woman. He'd go for lunch and I would dress her. And so he had to move her from a public place because every time he went for lunch, I'd put a new dress on her. Hat, purse, shoes, the whole thing. And he found it was useless. I got
It's
caught.
not your responsibility to do that, Charmaine.
No, but
that
it was fun.
The responsibility. That was the responsibility of the
No,
leadership
it was fun.
of
But
that organization.
it was, I didn't have any problems though.
I know you're a rock star and you handle it, man. Like we know how to handle it. That's
Yes.
We put a lot of our frontal lobe into handling it. Instead
Yeah,
of like
I
doing
could
the
tell
job.
you stories about these guys.
I know.
But
Yeah,
the
I
for
did have the
sure.
one guy that almost got fired because he was not going to take orders from a woman. But that
Well,
was his challenge.
Charlotte, there's
Okay,
something
Pat.
you're forgetting. The leadership wasn't doing anything about it.
No, but
So
now they are.
it's irrelevant if it's their job. I mean, I know it's their job, but they're not going to do it. So Charmaine shamed them into it, basically.
I know,
Basically,
but
yeah.
I just,
So,
I think
okay.
I was like that over-established sense of responsibility. I was like, the front lines aren't responsible for taking each other, like, holding each other responsible for things.
No,
Like,
but
for
they make our
corporate.
lives better, maybe.
It does, it makes a difference though. So let's go back to these other questions.
Charmaine,
Can I-
Robin has a question.
Robin, yes, go ahead.
Okay, my big question is how to not feel guilty when you say no.
Well, you know what? Initially, you're going to feel guilty because it's conditioned into you. So then you want to define what guilt is. Guilt is a tool people use to make you feel bad about yourself. And we do it to ourselves as well. It's a tool. Guilt in and of itself does absolutely nothing for anything. It doesn't make it easier to do anything. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't. Guilt has no power except the power we give it. So we have to unlearn the guilt gene. Right? Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I'm in
It's
trouble.
not, you know, it's not, I know it's not easy because I fall into it as well. We were conditioned to be guilty.
Yeah.
Right? We were taught how to accept it. And I think, Robin, you had an extra disadvantage there, and I'm not going to go any deeper into that, but
Thank you.
I know if you've got an Italian mother, you can really experience a lot of guilt. Right, Anne?
Well, Welsh mothers are pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. 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 I
Right
think
down
most
to
mothers are, or were. Mine was.
right down to getting to talking with your hands. My mother always used to say, she'd have her hands going and she'd say, well, you know, I can't talk without using my hands. I'm Welsh. Yeah, okay. And it was true, and I'm the same.
Okay.
I thought that was just a woman thing.
No.
No. No. So another question was, how do you set boundaries with clients? You know, you have your time. Well, here's this. How do you set boundaries on meetings? What? I know we're over. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. I can
That's
quit
okay.
right now.
That's all right.
Oh, no.
But
Okay.
when you're setting meetings, when you're setting a boundary on meetings, is you let people know the meeting's going to start at 7:00. We're not going to wait for 10 after 7 because the people that come at 5 after 7 and you wait for them, the next time they're going to come at 10 after 7. And then the next time they're going to come because you waited for them, they're going to come a quarter after. So remember, we teach people how to treat us. We want our meetings to start at time. And I learned this through Toastmasters. Start your meeting on time.
Yes,
And then people will be there on time. Right?
yes, yes.
Okay. So set it up in advance and let people know what the rules are. And then you have to stick to the rules. Okay. If I say no or set boundaries, will I lose relationships?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Expect that. Expect that. Notice that if they are unequal relationships where the other person has greatly benefited from your lack of boundaries, write down what would you miss about that relationship and what don't you want to put up with again. And then you set the boundary. And if they drop away, bye-bye. Right?
But I think that's what like put me off of like setting a boundary because I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna know this person's not gonna respect this.
But you know what, Charlotte,
But it was
is
good,
when
like,
you
know, in hindsight, like, yeah, you have to do it, but like,
when they drop away, it makes space for more people that you want, the more of the type of people that you want. You're opening
Yeah.
up that space.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, what's the difference between boundaries and selfishness?
That's a hard one.
Well, here's the question to ask yourself. Is it about my controlling others, or is it about my protecting me?
To protect yourself, it's self-respect.
Exactly. Selfishness is about controlling others. Self-care is about protecting me.
Mhm.
And that has come up before. Where is the difference between balance and adaptability to others in relation to compromise? Where is the difference between balance and adaptability to others in relation to compromise? There's another question to ask yourself. Does compromise make me feel bad or manipulated? Right. Ask, is this about me getting my way and controlling another, or is it about me feeling good about myself? And I'm not talking feeling superior like a narcissist. I'm talking about you're the good person who doesn't want to not communicate until you explode. You're the person who's a good person. So is it about me getting my way and being controlling? Or is it about me feeling good about myself? So what makes you you are your preferences, desires, limits, and deal breakers. Being honest with yourself and others by setting boundaries helps people know who you are. So my name is Charmaine Grace. I'm a life coach with your next step to possibilities. Oh, there's that one. Jocelyn, you should have made me move up again. But it's there in the slides, okay? I'm
Thank you,
Charmaine Grace. I'm your next step to possibility. And I'm sorry for taking us over time, but it was interesting.
It is very interesting. We are very grateful for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Charmaine, for agreeing to do
Thanks.
this.
I never
Thank you,
cared.
Charmaine.
What did you say, Anne?
I was gonna say, I never care about going over as long as it's worthwhile.
Yes.
If it's not
Absolutely.
worthwhile, then I'd probably still sit and wait anyway, but
Well,
But thanks for mentioning it, Anne. And Charmaine, oh, a real joy. It was totally engaging.
thank you.
yeah, it was very interesting. And I'm thinking of a story that happened. Can I talk or are we finished?
Yes. Well, it's up to.
Oh, yeah, please go on.
I'm not sure how many of you know I've been sick and dead for the last 10 days, but
No.
anyway, I'm sitting here now and thinking you better get your butt out of here. But last weekend, when I was sort of into this, I was supposed to be going down to help take down the Christmas trees.
Mm.
Which is fine because I put them up or help put them up. And I said, I'm not sure. This is the day before. I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it because I'm not really feeling that well. Well, the other person, one of the other people says, kind of half to me and half not to everybody, but you know how some people make comments? She said, this is the next day when I did go down and help. Now, I was lucky because Nick came down and did everything anyway. You know, that kid, he just fast. So she says, yesterday she said she was too sick to work. And I thought, oh, wow, after all the time I put in, I get a comment like that. But nobody noticed it. It was just sort of an undercurrent comment. You know, I didn't say a word and I don't intend to, but she will learn from that.
Exactly.
It was so interesting. A friend of mine, I think was about 65.
Thank
and
you,
she was
Sharon.
she was helping her mother, like in hospice and like or assisted living. And she was leaving the room. And as she was leaving, she overheard her mom say, always keep them running. And it was like this philosophy of like, you have to just keep dictating like routine, like just different tasks to like control the kid. And it was like, she's like a Anglican minister, like she was telling me the story about it. And it was
Oh,
just like
wow.
really like wild, like philosophy of like, I don't know, mentality. I don't know what that was, but does anybody else like know that kind of experience, or like always
It
keep the
happens.
kid running, or like you have to
Well,
kind
they might not say something like that, but you get these people who feel that you are obliged to take care of them.
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
need to
guess
read
that
the
role.
comment that's in the chat right now, Charmaine.
Okay.
Sharon Doran wrote, "Thank you, Charmaine, for an excellent presentation. I need to sign off now, and I appreciate your time and expertise."
Yes, I said thank you. I was trying to say thank you and I did a thank you in there. Thank
I
you.
was
Yes.
wondering about how politics was in Barrie.
Ah. Oh dear.
Yeah, Sharon had to go.
Well,
Yeah.
Anyways,
So thank you. And Anne Harvey, do you have a few words to say?
Yes, Charmaine, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so much. My takeaway is the 24-hour hint. I'm gonna use that one for sure. Thank
That's
you so much.
powerful.
Yes, yes. We very grateful for this. This should be up on YouTube in a few days
Okay.
for your beautiful faces. And we'll see you in February for our next one.
Great.
Yep. I have a lady from New Zealand. She's part of International BPW. And she's going to be talking about SDGs. And I'll tell you, this lady